So you want AI coding help in your terminal, but you don't want to pay for it. Well, Google Gemini CLI gives you 1,000 requests per day completely free. Let me show you if it's actually worth using though. What's up everyone? My name is Dan Vega, and if you've been following along with my coverage of AI coding tools, you know that I recently dove deep into something called Claude Code. Today I'm checking out Google Gemini CLI for the very first time. And here's why this matters to you as a developer. While Claude Code is amazing, it's not free. Gemini CLI, completely free with a Google account. We're talking 60 requests per minute, 1,000 requests per day, zero cost. And since I've never actually used this tool before, you're gonna get my complete, honest first impressions. We're gonna start by installing it from scratch, test it on a real coding task, and see how it stacks up against tools that you're probably already using and paying for. The big question is, can free actually compete with premium? All right, so we're gonna jump over here and I'm gonna leave a couple of links in the description below. The first is the article from Google Gemini CLI, your open source AI agent. This is a really good place to kind of get started with Gemini CLI, just to kind of learn what it's about. So I mentioned in the intro here, this is the big thing, available free of charge, 60 requests per minute, 1,000 requests per day, and this is open source too. So this is pretty cool. So powerful models in your command line comes with built-in tools. One of the things I really like is Google ground prompts of Google search. So you can fetch web pages and provide real-time external context. And this isn't in the form of you having to provide it like a tool or an MCP server. It basically, given the prompt, can determine, do I need to go search the web to get some extra context for this? Extend Gemini CLI capabilities through Model Context Protocol. So if you have MCP servers, you can go ahead and use them here in the terminal. Customize prompts and instructions, automate tasks, and integrate with existing workflows. So again, I mentioned before, it's open source, open and extensible. So I've seen, again, I haven't used this before, but I've seen a lot that's going on. And even though out of the box, you can use like the Gemini models, so Gemini Pro 2.5 and Gemini Flash, I've seen, because this is open source, other CLI versions of this kind of using other models, which is kind of cool. Shared technology with Gemini Code Assist and so on. So that's the kind of intro blog post. And then there's the Gemini CLI GitHub repo. So if you go into this, this is kind of what it looks like when you start it up. At least that's what I think. And then you can see just some kind of high level features here. The biggest thing for me is I'm going to do this along with you. So we're going to start here in the quick start. You basically have two options to install Gemini with Node. Run the CLI, or install it just using npm. Install-G is for global, and then you can run it anywhere, or you can use something like Homebrew. So I'm going to choose this route. So I'm going to go over here and just go ahead and paste this in, and we'll go ahead and run this command. All right, added 427 packages in 9 seconds. Now I need a project to work on. So I need to kickstart something up. I said this in my previous video when I kind of covered Claude Code. These terminal agents, whether you're using this, Claude Code or Gemini CLI, or if you're using some kind of IDE extension, something like Cursor or Windsurf or Junie, these really are meant to be like helping you be more efficient. And in this case, like I want to kick up a new Spring Boot application. I'm not going to ask the command line to do that because there are already tools out there that do that better. Something like start.spring.io. So whether you're in the Java space, or maybe you're in like the Laravel space or Python space, like my recommendation is to use those existing tools that you're already using to kind of bootstrap a project, and then ask the agents to kind of help you with whatever task you're building. So I'm going to do that today. I honestly don't know what I'm going to build today. I think what I want to do is I want to kick up something that's a web with Spring Security and maybe JTE. Maybe we'll build like a little bit of a front end for something. I don't know. And quite honestly, I don't even know that we're going to build something tangible. I just have an idea in my head. We'll see how far it goes. So let's call this a showcase. I'm going to build like a showcase for templates. And I think that's all I really need to get started. So what I'll do is go ahead and generate this project and download that zip, unzip it into my downloads folder, and we can go from there. Okay, so now with that, what I'm going to do is go into my downloads folder and that showcase. And again, I've never run this, but it says from the instructions to go ahead and run Gemini. And let's see, and there we go. So we are shown this nice screen. I like this a lot. I love the kind of ASCII art there with the color. Looks really cool. Tips for getting started, similar to Claude Code. Ask questions, edit files, or run commands. Be specific for best results. Create a Gemini.md file to customize your interactions with Gemini. I'm smiling because, again, I mentioned this in another video, but I really wish we can just kind of all conform to one file, like some kind of file that any of these tools can use, because I have a Claude.md, now a Gemini.md, cursor rules, windsurf rules, Junie rules, and it's a little crazy. So, and then you can type help to find out more. So first you select a theme. I'm going to stick with the default. Apply to user settings. Sure, that looks good. Actually, so you can jump up and down. Oh, I don't know. I am a big fan of Atom 1. Do we want to go Atom 1? Let's just stick with that. So I'm going to hit enter. And then the first thing that it's going to do, it's going to ask me to authenticate for this project. So I can log in with Google, I can use a Gemini API key, or I can use the Vertex API. So I think I'll do is I'll just log in with Google. All right, so once I've logged in, I now have the ability to use the Gemini CLI. So I want to take a look at a couple things. I want to start with that help. Actually, slash command, similar to Claude Code. If you just hit slash, so we can see about, auth, bug, chat. We can clear, so similar to Claude Code, we have the compress, which is probably like compact. Toggles Corgi mode, and that's pretty cool. Docs, editor, and help, MCP, memory, privacy, quit, stats, theme, and tools. So a lot of the things that I would expect to be there, that's pretty cool. So if we could just type help, let's see what we get there. We get a list of all those commands at a high level. So we can see that, and there's some keyboard shortcuts. So enter, Control J to new line, that's nice. Up and down, cycle through your prompt history. Alt left and right, jump through words and the input, shift and tab. Toggle auto accepting edits. So again, kind of similar to Claude Code there. Control Y, toggle YOLO mode. Love that, YOLO. So let's do shift edit. Actually, I got to escape out of there, right? Yeah. Do I need to clear? Okay, so now if I do a shift tab, accepting edits, I see over there. So we can tab between that. Now I see on the right here of the screen, I see that I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro, 100% of the context window left. One of the big things about using this, we mentioned it at the beginning, free to use, 60 requests per minute, 1,000 requests per day, but also a much bigger context window than anything else. You have like a 1 million token context window. So for some reason you need to add a whole bunch of additional context to this, you can do so without running out of room. So now I'm in this project. I like to start using any kind of agent to just get familiar with it. So I might say, tell me about this project that I am in. So let's see what it does here. It says no sandbox here. See the docs for that. I'm curious about that. I would hope it's like sandboxed to this thing that I'm working on. But that's interesting. Maybe we'll take a look at that. So this is a Java Spring Boot project. It appears to be a web application given the inclusion of Spring Boot Starter Web and a templating engine called JTE. It also includes a Spring Boot Starter Security, so it likely has some form of authentication or authorization. Built with Maven, JDK 24. Here's the likely main application class. Okay, so we got familiar with it. 99% context window left. So one of the things I really love about Claude Code is my ability to plan. I don't think I have that ability here, but I do want to see this. See docs. I want to see what the sandbox means. Sandbox. Is there nothing in here? I'm very curious. Okay, so we'll deal with that another time. I'm really curious if it's not sandbox to this directory. I'd be worried about that if it wasn't for running certain commands. So I'll dig into that and maybe we can learn a little bit more about that later. But let's see if we can use Gemini 2.5 Pro to kind of build something out. So I'm going to see, I should be able to use voice mode here because I'm going to type out a pretty long prompt and I don't like typing those out. And let's see if we can just build something here. So I want to build out a homepage where we can showcase some different templates that users can download. In this project, we're going to use JTE, Java Template Engine. So I want the index page to just display a bunch of fake templates for now. Then we're going to include Spring Security. You should not be able to get to this page unless you're authenticated. And the way that I want to authenticate is through OAuth 2. So you can sign in with something like an email and a password, or you can sign in with something like GitHub. So I want to put all this together and have a nice homepage to show all these off. Okay, that's good. Let's see what we can do with this. See if we can kickstart some things off. Okay, so it is doing a planning. It is going through and planning itself. I like that you can kind of see this. Okay, here's the plan. First, I'll add the necessary OAuth 2 dependency. Next, I'll create a simple data class for templates and service to provide some fake data, template data. I don't know that we need, oh yeah, okay, I guess that's good. MVC controller to handle the homepage request. I'll create a G template for the homepage to display the templates. Finally, I'll configure Spring Security to protect the homepage and enable OAuth 2 login with GitHub as an example provider. So cool, this is a good start. So it's asking, can you allow this change? So yes, again, allow once, always allow. What is the change? It's just editing. Yeah, I don't care if you do that. And then no. So I'm always going to allow that. I like that we saw there was an example of YOLO mode where you're just kind of like, yeah, go ahead. I wouldn't do that until I figure out if that sandbox is on. It still says no sandbox down there. I want it to be sandboxed to this particular directory, to this project, before I enabled YOLO. So we see it's adding a security filter chain being there. It has an error template. Then any other request is going to be authenticated. It has OAuth 2 login, but nothing set up. Finally, I'll add a GitHub client ID to your application properties. You'll want to actually add the real GitHub credentials in there, right? Writing to a file. Okay, I've completed all the steps. Added the OAuth 2 client dependency, created a template data class and a template service provider to provide fake data. We got a home controller. We got an index JTE. Configured Spring Security to require authentication for all pages except the home page and error page, and enabled OAuth 2 login. Cool. Added OAuth 2 GitHub OAuth 2 configuration to your application.properties. So I like that it also says this here. It says before you can run the application, you will need to create an OAuth 2 application on GitHub and replace your client ID and your client secrets placeholders in application.property with the actual values from your GitHub application. Once you've done that, you can run the application and you should be prompted to log in with GitHub to see the home page. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I am going to pause this. I am going to go off and grab, I got to set these up first. Maybe we can jump over there. So I'll go into my settings and then you go down to developer settings, and then OAuth apps. And so I'll go in here and configure this, and then we can go ahead and add this to the application. All right, so I'll do a new OAuth app. We'll call this Gemini CLI. This is the home page, the callback, sure, register application. And then here's my client ID and my client secret. We'll jump through this. So here's my client ID and my client secret. I will go ahead and delete these as soon as we are done. And we should be able to open this project up in IntelliJ here. So open project, we'll trust. let's see. So if we go into source main resources application.properties, this is where we will add our client ID and our client secret. So let's just take a look at the application. So we have our main Java. We have some things going on here. Let's take a look at the config. We have a security config. Again, to do Spring security, by default, everything's going to be locked down. We want to kind of override that security and set our own security configuration up. So this is a good start. Anything should be authenticated except the error page. And then we have this OAuth 2 login we've enabled for Spring Security. We have a home controller. It really just returns the index, which is the JTE template. There is for template in templates, we're going to display the template name and the author. So if we go back here, we have a template service that is probably going to set up some fake data. So we have a template service. Cool. Here are some templates. And then a template is really just made up of an ID, name, description, author, and image. I don't think we have any actual images for this yet. So I think this is a good start. Let's go ahead and fire this up, see if we can go ahead and run this application. Port 8080 was already in use. Okay. Let's run GPS and take a look at this. So QL-9. 53531. Let's try this again. And it looks like it started on 8080. So let's see if we can go to keyboard's acting funny. Okay, so here are all the templates. We see all the templates, but nothing is locked down. So let's go back to our security config, and any request should permit all. Any other request should be authenticated, and I am not authenticated. So, what's going on here? Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know why I only saw error here. So let's go ahead and rerun that. And let's refresh. And now we should go ahead and get to the login. So we're authorizing Gemini CLI. Yes, we want to go ahead and authorize. And we're redirected to localhost 88. And there we are. So not the coolest application in the world, but definitely a starter. We can go ahead and really start to improve on this. So let's go ahead and delete this. What I want to do is, I think if we go back here, it says create a Gemini MD file. Can you create a Gemini MD file for this project? And this is where you would probably put all of your customizations, things on like how you like to write code, how your organization likes to write code, certain coding standards that you have. I know I do this a lot with like Spring. These are the things, this is how I like to write code. This is how, these are the types of like, I want to favor the REST client over the REST template. I want to use Spring Data JDBC over something like Spring Data JPA. So this is where you can kind of put all of this. And by default, these tools will just kind of look at your project and create this kind of README file, or what this application is, what the architecture is, how this is going to be constructed, and put this in a file. So now if we go over here, we should see this Gemini CLI. And now we see this. And what I love about this is it kind of goes into this. Yes, it's using JTE. Yes, it's using Spring Security with the OAuth 2 client. And then it says, hey, if you want to do this, you got to put in your GitHub client ID and secret. Here are the key files. So this is pretty cool. Let's do it. Let's ask it to do another thing. And can I go ahead and clear this? Yes. And that actually cleared. So it looks like I'm at, unless I really haven't used anything, I'm at 100% context left. So one more thing I might do is, let's say, can we add some more fake data with some images and style up the home page using Tailwind CSS. So again, this is like something I would put in my coding standards of like, hey, when I build front ends, these are the things that I like to use. But I'm just kind of being explicit there. And you saw me at the beginning. I love using something like OpenWhisper to talk, because when you start building these things out, when you really don't know what you're doing, you're kind of planning these things out. We're going to be talking a lot and we're going to be iterating. So if you can use dictation, it will save you a lot of time. And it just feels like especially me, I sit here at home. I'm not in an office in a cubicle next to somebody. I miss that kind of banter back and forth. Like, this is the thing I'm trying to build. And so I like doing that. So you see down in here, it says Google search. So it realized that it maybe didn't have context or up-to-date context on something that it wanted to use. So it actually did a Google search there and went out and found that. And then it read the file. It says, okay, I'm going to use the front-end Maven plugin. I like this because what it's not doing is it's not just sticking in a just like a build of the Tailwind CSS, which you don't want to do in production. It's actually going through and creating a proper way to do this. At least I think so. I wonder what it's doing. Source main resources static. We'll dig into it, but okay. So now I need to run a new command that I haven't run before, which is mvn clean install. Yes. Go ahead and do this. One thing I like about Claude Code too is you can kind of create a settings file with like, hey, these are the commands that when you're in this repo, just please go ahead and accept. You don't need to ask me for permission. I like doing that because it stops the repetitive, yes, you can do that. And sometimes like I may write a prompt and just like go away and want it to kind of finish it, and then I'll go off and do something else. So looks like it's running clean install and it wants to check itself. Again, I love that these agents kind of do this. It did some things. Now it's going to run. It is a build. The success was good. And the Tailwind CSS file was generated. So now it's opening up the index JTE and it's going to add some styling in there. Web server failed to start. It's already on port 8080. I think I did that again. I closed down the thing, right? Let's see, 1190. Okay. Now let's see if it does it again. Now it's going to start. Now, okay, now it's starting on 8081. It's checking its work, probably seeing if everything's okay. Resolving application launch. It looks like I could escape to cancel, but I won't. I see the 90% context left. Now in the bottom right, I still see it's running Gemini 2.5 Pro. I've watched some videos on this, so it's my first impression of me using it, but I've seen it before. One of the things that I've heard people say is sometimes that'll just switch out to like Gemini Flash 2.5 or whatever it is. So just be careful of that. So you pay attention to that. I'm always kind of looking at that right now, making sure what model we have, making sure our context is good. But in this scenario with the 1 million token context window, I don't think I'm going to run out of that, so not a big deal. Okay, this is just checking its work. I'm going to escape out of this because I don't think I need to do that. Let's go ahead and see what it did here. So let's go ahead and reload. One thing I know it did was add that front-end Maven plugin. So here's the JTE plugin, front-end Maven plugin. So it's going to install Node. Here's the Node version, NPM version. Good, good. All right. And then what it does is we end up in this static CSS. So here's the input. This is Tailwind. Here's the output. And then our Tailwind config says here's the contents of it. That's good. It recognized we're in a JTE. It's like here are the places where Tailwind's going to be used. And then we have our package JSON, our package. What version of Tailwind are we running? So 3.4.1. Okay. And then here's our build. So this says, hey, here's our input. So any input we add in here will then end up in this output CSS. So then what I expect is in my index.jte will reference that output. And there it is. So CSS output. And then we have some styling. So let's see if we can go ahead and run this. Go back over to localhost 8080. Not running. Oh, 8081. So I think what it did was change this. Yeah, we don't need that. All right, let's run this again. And then 8080. Cool. All right, this is good. Now we have some like nice styling here. Not perfect, but again, just in a few minutes here, going back and forth, we were able to create a nice little Spring Boot application using the Gemini CLI. And yeah, and I think, for just kind of not coming in with a plan and just kind of throwing something together, I think it works. All right, so there it is. That's my kind of first look at Gemini CLI. I'll have to use it a bunch more to kind of give you a full review of it. My first impressions, it's very similar to Claude Code. I like being in the terminal. I mentioned in that video that I didn't think I would like being in the terminal that much, but it's a very pleasant experience. My two questions I have about Gemini CLI is that sandbox to that project? That's kind of important to me. I'd want that to happen. And then I don't know. The other question is, I don't really have that planning mode, which I like in Claude Code, where I can sit there and like plan something out before I write any code. I guess there's probably a way I can go iterate back and forth with it, but I'm not sure yet. My pros for this, obviously, is this is free. This is free for 60 requests a day, 1,000 requests, or 60 requests an hour, 1,000 requests per day. So if you want to get started with something free, this is the obvious choice. And I'm a huge fan of the Gemini models. For a long time I wasn't, but man, they've done an amazing job lately. Gemini 2.5 Pro is a really good model for coding, and so I could see using it right here in the terminal. I'd feel like I could be pretty productive with it. In the small, just little tasks that we did here, I thought it did a really good job. So pretty cool. Gemini CLI, another one of those tools I'm going to add to the arsenal, and we'll see. We'll start using it a little bit more, and then we'll give you some more feedback on how it is. So let me know in the comments below, are you using Gemini CLI? Are you using any of the CLIs out there? I'd love to hear from you on your feedback on pros and cons of some of these tools that you're using out there. But at the end of the day, a lot of them are doing the same thing. What we want to do is use the tools that make us most productive. I always say, like, hey, when I open up an editor, when I open up some code, I'm using IntelliJ. You don't need to IntelliJ. You don't need to use IntelliJ because I'm using it. You need to use the tools that make you most productive. And that is really what I think a lot of us are trying to find out right now, right? Trying to figure out. There's all these tools in this space right now. Which ones are we comfortable using? Which ones are going to make us more productive? That's the winner. And maybe for some of us, it's this. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. All right, friends, I had fun putting this together today. If you learned something new, do me a big favor, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, happy coding.